In this video, I'm going to show you how we mounted our mountain bikes inside of our camper van. Let's get started. We grabbed measurements inside the van so that we could mount our steel that's going to be holding the fork mounts to the L-track. We drilled some holes where the L-track is going to bolt to the steel, and then we drilled some holes where the bike mounts are going to go into the steel. We tapped those holes with a thread tap so that we could actually bolt the bike mounts directly to the steel instead of having nuts or something like that on the bottom of the steel to make this whole thing super low profile. The actual fork mounts we're using are these thru-axle fork mounts from Unaka Gear Company, and these are simply going to just use machine screws and screw to those threaded holes that we just made. Underneath these nylon inserts here, you can just poke that out like so. And that shows the screw holes where we can put our machine screws there. And then we can just thread this machine screw directly into that tapped hole. Now these mounts are incredibly low profile. They're just a shade over a ½ inch from the bottom to the middle of the thru axle, which actually makes some problems, which I'll show in just a second, but it comes with some spacers to overcome the problem. So with this thru axle mount on the bike, you can actually see that my brake caliper, the bottom part of it, is actually hitting the table before the mount can actually sit flush on the table. Now this is going to be the case on most mountain bikes, I would venture to guess, and that's why the spacers are there. We can just take our spacers and put them underneath the bike mount. And so it fits flush. And I can actually just use the ½ inch spacer that comes with it, even though there's also a ¼ inch. But you know, it's real close now. I'd say only probably an 1/8 of an inch. So just to be safe, I'm gonna go ahead and use both of the spacers for our application here. Now with our spacers figured out, we can go ahead and attach the mount to the flat bar that we already drilled. And we're going to be painting this later, but I always like making sure that things are actually gonna fit before I paint. With both of the bike mounts mounted, we're gonna go put them in the van and make sure that our holes for our L-track fit. I think that fits perfectly. We've got a couple inches underneath our bed, so that's super nice. I didn't bolt anything down, but ultimately I can see that it's going to work when it's bolted down. So I'm going to take this apart, disassemble everything, and paint the metal so it looks a little nicer. Now while I'm painting the steel, I just wanted to say that the way that I mounted it, I mean, you don't have to do it like that. The key point is just use number 10 flathead screws. So if you wanted to drill into wood, you know, number 10 wood screw is going to fit just fine. If you want to use a number 10 machine screw into some 80/20 or something like that, that's another great option too. Ultimately, there's all kinds of different ways that you can mount this, and I just wanted to do it the most low profile way that I could manage. So we're going to let the paint dry overnight, and then we're going to reassemble and permanently affix it in the van. So we let our bars dry overnight and they look super nice. Now it's time for final assembly to get them mounted in the van. This time when we put the screws for the mounts in, we're going to use some red Loctite to permanently mount them in place. And that wraps up this project, but here's a few more details about kind of the fitment of the bikes. So my bike is a large frame and it's sitting at 33 inches tall or so. The bottom of the bed is at 35 and a half or so. So we've got quite a bit of room in here. If we wanted to lower the bed just a little bit, we probably could. Probably not gonna do that though. It's nice to have a little bit of extra space. The caliper down here is about 3/4 of an inch above the actual floor of the van. So we probably could have done without the spacers, but I like to have a little bit of room there in case I get a different bike or something like that. And I found that the simplest and easiest way for storing the front tires is simply to voile strap them to the side of the bike frame. And I'm really happy with this mounting method. It's really strong, it's easily removable, and it's really fast with these Unaka thru-axle bike mounts. And I'll leave a link to these in the video description below. I hope this gave you some ideas for your own projects, and I'm ready for a bike ride, so we'll see you next time.